This is some of the fancy footwork we've seen in the past at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. A little bootleg spin on the big end. Sloppy conditions, even by mud racing standards, will dampen that dusty flourish, but the NMRO All-Stars hope to make a big splash just the same. Coming up next, we'll see who puts the best face on this messy situation. This is Trucks and Tractor Power featuring the All-Stars of the four-wheel and off-road Jamboree Mud Racing Series. Today, it's the Penda four-wheel and off-road Jamboree Fall Nationals from the Indiana State Fairgrounds here in Indianapolis. Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Lee, and welcome to Trucks and Tractor Power on the Nashville Network. It has been very wet here in central Indiana the past several days, and as far as the weather is concerned, I would say it's a double-edged sword as to how it affects today's competition. But when you're working with Army Armstrong, he has all these unique ways of describing a situation. So take notes. We're going to teach you two new words in motorsports as we go trackside to my colleague Army Armstrong with his assessment of the weather.
Gary, we've got a unique situation in the infield of Indy because the Class 5 competition is getting ready to make a run, and these drivers are facing what I'm going to call a yin and a yang situation. Okay? Class 5, cut tires, not the scooper. So the horsepower is going to be important. We've got plenty of horsepower because it is cold out here today. Matter of fact, we're not expecting it to get over 70 degrees. That will make more horsepower for these engines naturally just because they're cooler. That's the yin. The yang is, it's been raining here for 2 or 3 days. It's literally a quagmire out there, and the drivers say there's nothing to get a hold of. It's going to be like skipping a rock when you were a kid playing in a pond. You've got to get on top of this track to make it work for you here today. If you don't get the horsepower to the water and stay on top, it's just not going to work for you. The yin is the horsepower's up. The yang is the bike's not on the track. Now we got to figure out who's going to figure out the yin-yang of this thing and go to the winner's circle. The first two are going to the line right now. Let's go see how it's going to happen. Back to you, Gary.
There he is, your motorsports philosopher, Professor Army Armstrong. Well, very sloppy conditions, even for this sport. It rained very hard and very consistently yesterday. The infield has been a mess. They've been pumping out the water. The graders have been working. Well, mud soup track conditions. A track record for 180 feet, 2.82. That was Buddy Curley in the Snoot in 1992. We're ready now for our first pairing. Here is Tom Davis in the backyard Bogger, a CJ7 Jeep with a big 454 cubic inch Chevy engine. Ron Smith alongside Gold Fever, pretty car, 1948 Fiat with the big 496 blowing Rodeck.
You know, Gary, there's always a war within a war. Well, Ron Smith is in kind of a battle with another vehicle, we'll bring it out later, to decide bragging rights on who has the fastest 1948 Fiat. We'll tell you about that a little bit later, but right now, whoa, look at this. Ron laid down a shot.
A cannon shot. Look at this. A new track record for cut tire competition here in Indianapolis. 2.79. Tom Davis a 4.86.
Well, that makes Smith not only the fastest Fiat, but like you say, he's on the point of this thing with the 279. Gary, that could be unbeatable, and it came right off the bat. If there's such thing as a perfect run, that was awfully close to it. He stayed on top, just like I said, he was skipping that rock.
Well, as we look again, indeed, unusual to be that fast this early in the competition. Here's Army with Ron.
Ron, on a day when everybody said it wasn't going to work, you put it together with a number of 279. That's the quickest ever run at this track.
Well, the KCD car hooks up real good in mud. It's made to run in mud, and the outerwear pre-filter kept the mud out, and we just hauled as fast as we could go. It's awful wet out there. We hope it holds.
Well, here comes a good test. Two previous winners, the Mud Patrol and S-Kicker. Jeremy Finley in the S-Kicker, Tom Meents in the Mud Patrol. Both have won here at Indy.
That was a good mud race there.
Look at that for Tom Meents at 2.936. However, Finley was quicker. Finley's time was a 2.930 in the S-Kicker. He was the Class 6 event winner here back in 1991. Let's take a look again. And once again, Meents gets out first, but the competition is against the clock, not against each other. Here is Jeremy Finley.
Hey, Gary, this guy's got to have more guts than Dick Tracy. He's the first one to make a run through here today without a top on the vehicle. Does that affect you anymore being out in the open? Because you know you're going to get muddy.
The way the water's spraying, even if you're in an enclosed car, you can't hardly see going through there, because the first thing it does is cover you up.
So you made the run basically not being able to see where you're going?
Yeah, pretty much. You can sort of see, but it's fuzzy.
I guess in motorsports they call that blind luck. We're coming back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Penda Four-Wheel and Off-Road Jamboree Fall Nationals, brought to you by Ford Trucks. Army standing by now with Tom Means.
Tom, the times are really surprising everybody. We thought they'd be a lot slower. You guys are turning some trick numbers out here in a real gooey track.
Yeah, some of their cars really went quick. I didn't quite get the run I'm looking for, but it went pretty good down through there the way the track was. I was kind of surprised.
Do you think you might be able to stay in the top 5 with the numbers you've got here today? This is a tough field.
I don't know. There are a lot of cars back there yet to run, so it'll be interesting to see.
Well, coming up next is Shane Back in the Attitude Adjuster in the far lane, the 23 Alter T. There's Shane out of Jeffersonville, Kentucky, and he pulls alongside Tom Martin in another Mud Patrol entry, a 32 Chevy Coupe.
I'll tell you what, this sport is getting a lot of popularity, and these two guys are starting to develop a following back out of the Bluegrass State. Martin, he's from up in the north, but they run each other all over the country. They're trying to go after a 279 on what was called a moment ago a fuzzy track. Let's see. Martin goes out first, gets a little bit hooked up.
Hang on.
Where's Back? Okay.
Oh, hold your breath on that one. Martin at 2.903, but he almost wiped out 2 cars there, and there's Shane Back's 3.10.
Gary, that had to affect that man, seeing the other man in his lane. Even though you're running a clock, that's got to hurt you, doesn't it?
Well, obviously your vision is very wide driving race cars, and he could see exactly what was happening off to his left. That is very disconcerting, as you indicated. They're both hard on the binder, sliding to a stop. Once again, no contact being made as we look one more time. And you can see Tom awesome. Come across through the cones, and right there he almost makes contact. Let's go down and talk now to Tom Martin.
A 2909, a wet, muddy, cold 2909, I might add. Are you satisfied with that?
I'm real satisfied. Took off great, hit second gear, and everything went black. I got a little out of shape out there. Hope I didn't scare that other guy. Scared me a little bit, but I want to thank everyone for helping me get here. We had a good time, and I'm happy with it.
Tom, I like that mud pack beauty treatment you're using there. All right, we take a look at a good-looking 48 Fiat, a Power Pro. That's the Executioner, and this is John Summers. There's your time to beat as he takes on John Harmon in the Street 46 Jeep.
Harmon leads first. I'm amazed at the caliber of racing we're seeing here today.
A lot quicker than we had anticipated. John Harmon with his 310. The Executioner with Mike Summers turns in a 330. So indeed, the track a lot faster than we had anticipated. Well, coming up next, there is Lightfoot. Bill Oldenwald in his 32 Chevy Coupe, and Tom Marsh will pull alongside in the Intruder. There's a look at Oldenwald from Decatur, Michigan. The vehicle he calls Lightfoot. There is Tom Marsh in the purple and yellow Intruder. Tom comes out of Vandalia, Ohio, a suburb of Dayton, Ohio. So he's had about a 2-hour drive to get to the Indiana State Fairgrounds here in Indianapolis.
Gary, either of these guys could still be a player. At 279, even though it's a new record, shows it can happen. And the track is just kind of fooling everybody. I think what they do, they go out there and just take their best shot and hope the number sticks. Look at Marsh. That's a good run.
Oh, he laid down an excellent run. Tom Marsh out of Vandalia, Ohio, the Intruder. And the time on that run of 3.04. And looking at the other lane, Bill Oldenwald. There was his time.
Look how slick the top of the, see the water, by having so much water, it's going back and it's settling itself. It's getting smoother quicker.
It's finding its own level.
Yeah, but also notice halfway through the run, Marsh kicks his face mask up too. So all the drivers are having trouble seeing on, again, as Finley called it, this fuzzy track.
And looking at the leaderboard now, once again, Ron Smith lays down that record run in Gold Fever at 279. Then Tom Martin in the Mud Patrol at 290. And Jeremy Finley in the S-Kicker at 293. More mud racing from the State Fairgrounds coming up on Trucks and Tractor Power. Welcome back to Indy. Here's Army with more on those sloppy conditions.
Hey, Gary, when we started the show, we said there's a yin and a yang, the yin being the horsepower, the yang being the track conditions. There could be a thump, too. Look what they're trying to look through, Gary. There's so much mud and soup out there. The guys are saying they're not seeing the last 2/3 of the track. They're just driving by feel. Back to you, Gary.
Here's a look at what we're talking about. We mentioned earlier the mud mask beauty treatment. Look at this. And that comes as a result of runs like these from earlier in the competition. This is Mike Hickerson in Mind Games. He has to get that visor up so he can see to bang off the wall. That was a 4.98. Henry Mattingly up in the Magnum Force. Well, he's using all the property and then some.
He got up where it's high and dry. I don't blame him a bit.
It was also DQ'd. Melvin Brown in the Blue Max. Has to get the visor up as well, driving with one hand. Wild run.
Yeah, but to these guys, Gary, that mud is a badge of honor.
Well, Rusty Foster in the appropriately named vehicle, Real Excitement, taking on Stanley Trimble in its T-Rat.
Trimble's a school teacher out of the Bluegrass State. He goes at 337.
Maybe he needs some driver's education as he infringed on the other lane there. Bob Marshall up next and beating the odds.
Told you about the yin yang and thump, but right here Marshall gets thumped in the face with the mud and has to burp the throttle just to get through. He didn't try to drive the last half, Gary. He just wanted to get out of this thing.
And back at the starting line, there's Donnie Klink Jr. and Wild Thing. And that is as clean as he's going to look all day out of Phillipsburg, Ohio.
You gonna take a picture of O'Donnell? You better do it now.
And here is Mark Semper in the Chevy pickup Wild Bosco. Mark is out of Fresno, California. He's come a long way back to the Midwest to race.
Let me tell you, I've seen this guy before. He'll tap dance in a minefield for you. He likes to really put it literally on kill. What did I say?
Laid down a good run.
Oh, man. That guy will rock and roll you.
Not quite fast enough, though. That is good for fourth position, 2.93 for Mark Semper. And the Wild Thing, Donnie Klink at 3.64.
Gary, you got to remember, though, the magic number in this sport is 3 seconds. This guy goes sub 3 on a less than ideal condition.
Yeah, you'd think that'd be quick enough to put him in the top 3, but right now that's good enough for fourth position. So let's go down trackside and visit with Mark Semper.
You got a 2.932. I understand that puts you in the number 4 spot. You got to be tickled to death with that.
Oh yeah, after everything that's happened this weekend, I'm happy just to be in somewhere in the top 10 with this many good competitors.
All right, let's talk about these competitors. You guys in California, you get to come over here and run with these guys. Is this the kind of competition you thought would be? And if so, you're definitely a player with them. You can run with these guys.
Oh yeah, we're hoping to be competitive with the cars back east. They're supposed to be really fast, in which they are. It's just nice to see this many good competitors all assembled at the same time for one of these TNN shows. We really enjoy it.
Back at the starting line now, we take a look at Dan Bukes in Turtles Toy, a 72 Chevy with a big Alki injected Chevy power plant.
Gary, there's another one of those 48 Fiats we were talking about.
Kimball Schau's in Pony Express in the far lane.
That's a racy looking little car, the way the body, the Snoopy nose on it. Got a fuzzy track and a car with the Snoopy nose.
Yeah, a member of the 2-second club. He can lay one down right here, but
Look
now
at this.
power comes in late. He did not get a good hole shot. Had some trouble getting it stopped.
We got a good view of the guy he's racing because he's looking right at him.
That's not the view you want, though. Dan at a 3.22. That is a weird looking creation. And there is the 4.84 for that Fiat. Very slow start, but then he cranked it on about mid-track.
484 with the slide job.
Gary Mink, bad to the bone, a 54 Willys pickup truck. And his competition, there's a look at the Fresno, California native. His competition will be represented by Mike Yosha in Extremely Hyperactive. And Mike, of course, is right here in his hometown.
Now, Mike's about 2 blocks from home. Mink comes all the way from Fresno, one of the 2 Fresno Flyers here today. And I tell you what, these California guys like this type of atmosphere because it's very similar to be, even though they're about 500 feet in the air, with this much moisture, it's like being at sea level for them, and they can make the horsepower. That was a good race.
Couple of good runs right there. Let's check the times. Once again, we'll take a record. Oh, good run, but 2:99 will not get him in the top 4. And Mike Yoshi at 3:16. Quick runs, but still, it's amazing how fast these guys have gone today. Once again, Ron Smith in Gold Fever with a new record here for the State Fairgrounds at 2:79. Tom Martin is second, and Jeremy Finley is third. So Ron Smith goes out first, lays down a track record for the State Fairgrounds, and he's trackside with Army Armstrong.
Ron, we're getting pretty well into this class. Now, you're still the man sitting out there on top of this thing, but is there anybody behind you or anybody left that can still hammer the coffin on you?
There's at least 2 or 3 more cars out there that could jump up there and fly just as fast as I did. Time will tell, but we'll see.
How about those California boys? They come back east and made a good showing for themselves.
Yeah, them California boys, they run real good, but I run my engine builder, Joe Bogosian, and theirs is the same guys, so we like each other.
Well, here's one of those guys that can jump up and fly. This is Jeff Ballard, driver of the Port Brothers Express, up from near Army's neck of the woods in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. And another guy that could do it is Jim McConville, the cat in the hat. Jim won the Class 6 competition here back in 1992. They're coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back to Indianapolis, where Ford Trucks present the Penda 4-Wheel and Off-Road Jamboree Fall Nationals, a part of the BF Goodrich Performance Series. One of the best values in motorsports. That's how I describe these jamborees. One ticket buys a whole day's worth of activities, from the manufacturer's midway to the show and shine competition, games for the kids, plus all the great monster truck and mud racing you see right here on Trucks and Tractor Power. There's Army's vehicle right there. And speaking of great racing, there has been no shortage of that here today. And no shortage of mud either. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from the other competitors. A star-studded field who didn't even crack the top 5. Ron Pence and Tater.
Normally, Ron Pence, one of the heaviest hitters in the sport. Not to be his day today. Just couldn't get it to hook up. Won a 3.202.
Ron's good friend, Fred Wilhite. Here's another 48 Fiat.
Not able to cut the number. He goes at 3.16. So some of the big guys not putting it to the track.
Brian Harrell doing some mud surfing on the top end.
Flying Brian, hanging 10 out the end, but not the number he was looking for.
And a big disappointment for Mike Barman in Chemical Reaction, the 93 NMRO cut tire champion, but he comes to Indy and does not even finish.
Lost a transmission is what happened there in the 27 Roadster.
Mike Camella in Bonkers.
Gave it a shot, just wasn't to work for him. 312 is all he can net today.
Back in the starting line, Dan Richter in the Richter scale. In the far lane, the near lane, Jeff Ballard.
Richter running a higher center of gravity in that far lane car. Ballard running the lower center of gravity, trying to see if it's going to work for him. But right now, the mud's a problem. Ballard kicks the windshield out of the way. Did you see that? Had to let go of the steering wheel, Gary, and actually reached up and kicked that windshield out of the way so he could see.
318 for Jeff Ballard. So many of these drivers are flipping the visors up on their helmets anyway so they can see. And there's the 352 for Dan Richter in the Richter scale. Well, Ron Smith looks on. He's still number 1 with a thumbs up, and he takes a look at Jim McConville. He's a former class winner here out of Grandview, Missouri. Mr. Four-Wheeler, Jim McConville, who always has that blue hat on if he's not wearing a racing helmet.
He's the guy that brought a supercharged engine into the sport a few years ago and literally revolutionized the sport. This man knows McConville can get him.
Ron Smith and Tom Martin, first and second, looking on. McConville with a bye run. It's do or die right now for Jim McConville.
McConville leaves hard, but something goes away on that car in the middle of the run, Gary. Something's not right.
Yeah, he got a good hole shot, but did not have the top end for some reason. We're not sure why. As we watch McConville head back to the pit area, Ron Smith will win here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. There's the problem. McConville drops a drive shaft, and Smith picks up the victory. He's with Army.
Hey, Gary, we made an observation during the final run. This guy was hanging around with the boys in the hood. You didn't even watch McConville make his run.
I don't usually watch most of the guys. It bothers me more just to watch them. I just soon wait and find out. It's kind of like watching them before I run. It doesn't matter what they do in their lane. I'm going to do something different, so I just keep my mind on what I need it on.
Well, congratulations. You put away a whole lot of awfully good vehicles. You know, you got to be awfully proud of that.
I sure am. The car worked fine. I've been coming down here for 3 years straight now trying to do something good, and we won it finally, so we're happy.
So our congratulations to Ron Smith on that record run, and there is a disconsolate Jim McConville climbing out after spitting out that front drive shaft. A good look at the Pepsi Coliseum here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds as the fans are beginning to make their way to their cars. So that will wrap it up for us here in Indianapolis. For Army Armstrong, I'm Gary Lee. We'll see you next week on Trucks and Tractor Power. Now here's word of an exciting new video offer from Diamond P Sports.